A low, angular vehicle rolls into view at a parade in China. There's no deep diesel rumble, just the dry clatter of tracks. From a distance, it could be another armored vehicle, but the turret sits low and fully enclosed, its movements too controlled. It looks more like a remote weapon station than a crude fighting compartment. Then more appear. 4 in formation, matching support vehicles, following on the same chassis. In September 2025, China declared that the future of armored warfare belongs to whoever builds the best networked autonomous tank, and to signal they are already ahead. These vehicles, according to reporting outlets, are known as the Type 100, also called the ZTZ-100. They're a new hybrid electric tank that China has just decided to display publicly. Most of what we know comes from observation and reporting rather than official specifications. Those are currently buried under red tape. And yet the basic idea behind the reveal is very clear. China is presenting a tank specially designed to counter the logic of a battlefield where once armor is spotted, it can be tracked and targeted in minutes. This leaves traditional armory open to attack from above or at standoff range, threats that older protection schemes were not designed to address. The Type 100 aims not to fall prey to these situations. Reporting says it was first seen in testing in 2024, and like the vehicle shown in September 2025, they were described as medium tanks, weighing roughly 40 tons. Such numbers put it below the weight class of China's heaviest main battle tanks. Despite this, they were presented as carrying a large set of new systems. A German mechanized officer, speaking anonymously to Popular Mechanics, said the Type 100 follows the broader direction of modern tank design, quote, in nearly all aspects, pointing to the lighter weight, a fully robotic turret, and active protection systems meant to detect and defeat incoming missiles and drones. According to that same report, that package is powered by a hybrid diesel-electric drive. The benefits of a lighter tank compound are quickly apparent. It can move through more types of terrain and face fewer limits when loading onto ships or crossing bridges. And if it bogs down or takes damage, recovery is easier as less towing force is needed and more vehicles can pull it out. In a Taiwan-style amphibious operation, or a flare-up along the Himalayan border, weight stops being an advantage. On such terrains, vehicles have to come ashore and navigate narrow roads and rough terrain. In those conditions, a lighter, more mobile armored platform has a real edge. Still, China's bigger claim is that the Type 100 is built around what Chinese military writing often calls informatization, a style of warfare in which information is the main advantage. The idea is to spot threats first, convert those detections into reliable targeting data, and strike before the enemy can react. Furthermore, the Type 100 is reported to use a robotic, unmanned turret with an auto-loading gun, keeping the crew in the hull rather than the turret. A turret that does not need space for people can be designed with a smaller, lower profile, while the crew stays inside the hull, separated from the turret and from stored ammunition. The intent is to reduce the likelihood that a turret hit results in a crew loss. However, pushing the crew deeper into the hull creates an obvious trade-off: visibility. A tank's crew still needs awareness in every direction, especially when threats can approach from close range or from above. The Type 100 is described as carrying distributed optical and infrared sensors, along with radars meant to provide continuous coverage around the vehicle. That sensor feed is then fused with data from friendly vehicles and drones moving with the formation, then pushed into the crew's augmented reality goggles. The display overlays the positions of friendly units and suspected threats on top of the live view. This provides the crews with a kind of X-ray vision that enables them to maneuver and fight without relying on exposed observation. The central claim, though, is active protection. Type 100 is described as using a hard-kill APS built around AESA radars, consisting of 4 arrays scanning outward and another array looking upward to detect attacks from above. When a threat is detected, the system warns the crew and cues launchers to fire precisely timed countermeasures intended to intercept it before impact. The defensive package is also described as being layered. The Type 100 is said to carry radar and laser warning receivers, along with soft kill tools like smoke. Some accounts also mention a laser dazzler meant to interfere with optically guided weapons, plus a remotely operated machine gun mount with its own sensors that could add another layer of protection. China also showed the Type 100 alongside a companion vehicle described as the ZBD-100. This vehicle is reported to use a similar hybrid diesel-electric setup. It carries tools to support the tanks in a drone-heavy fight. According to witnesses, it possesses a smaller autocannon turret, a radar that can be raised when needed, reconnaissance drones, and loitering munitions launched from the vehicle itself. It's also described as carrying a small infantry team. Taken together, the formation is described as being intended to avoid moving into danger without warning. Recent combat, especially in Ukraine, has shown how quickly armored vehicles can be detected and tracked once drones are in the air. Right now, China is trying to claim the lead in the race to field a next-generation armored vehicle. More than a decade ago, Russia attempted the same kind of statement with the T-14 Armata, parading an unmanned turret and active protection as proof that Moscow had cracked the future of tank design. Years later, Russia has failed to make the T-14 a defining combat presence in the war in Ukraine. In fact, there is no widely accepted evidence that it's been used in frontline combat. Meanwhile, the United States is moving in a different direction. They are instead pushing toward an improved Abrams platform with the M1E3. That leaves China with one clear advantage to advertise. It has something to show first. But showing a vehicle is not the same thing as proving it. Hybrid power gives the crew more options when the engine isn't running. Crews can keep essential systems running without the engine constantly turning over, which reduces the need to sit and idle just to feed sensors and defensive gear. And if part of the drivetrain is damaged, that same architecture may still leave the vehicle with some ability to move. However, the bigger issue is that modern surveillance leaves far less room for those advantages to matter. Acoustic quiet only matters at very short ranges. Drones can easily spot movement from above and push coordinates almost instantly, so a vehicle can be silent and still get tracked the entire time it's moving. That same dependence shows up in the Type 100's more advanced features. A robotic turret and sensor-driven displays might keep crews safer while they're driving, but it also means the tank depends entirely on electronics and onboard processing. In combat, there's always the risk that smoke hangs over the route, temporarily blinding the camera lenses and sensors. These could also pick up grime or get damaged, either by combat or dust being kicked around the roads, leading to a blurred or unreliable picture after a few hours of real movement. Electronic warfare adds another layer of uncertainty. If links degrade or drop, the crew is forced to operate with a gap from the data while the vehicle is still moving and threats are still closing. Even the firepower carries a cost. Some accounts suggest the Type 100's 105mm system is being pushed for high performance. Higher muzzle velocity can improve penetration, but it also wears barrels faster and puts more strain on the autoloader. That turns the subject of firepower into a question regarding endurance. The issue stops being what the gun can do in a test and becomes what the unit can keep in service after repeated firing and field repairs. While China can present a strong concept for the public to see and fear, the real test will be whether it holds up when its sensors get degraded, and the crews will have to fight with a reduced picture of the battlefield. The same German source quoted by Popular Mechanics has described the real friction points as doctrine and reliability. As he said, quote, "It'll still take a lot of learning and acquiring experience to incorporate this into doctrine and tactics. Also, it's adding a lot more failure points for operations. There needs to be redundancy to use the tank, even if systems get damaged or just break." Relying heavily on active protection and sensors can be effective against missiles and drones, but it doesn't cover every threat, especially high-energy kinetic rounds in traditional tank-on-tank fights. That may be acceptable if it's true what China assumes, that in modern combat, armored vehicles are frequently lost to mines, artillery, missiles, and drones. Furthermore, it may not have been a one-off reveal. The more likely direction is a vehicle family that will eventually include multiple variants built around the same hybrid powertrain and sensor train. If China can field that ecosystem in numbers and keep it effective when equipment degrades, it could be setting a new template for how armored units fight. Meanwhile, America is chasing many of the same ingredients, such as active protection, better sensing and networking, as well as new powertrain options, but it's pursuing them through Abrams modernization and separate unmanned drone efforts, rather than a clean-sheet medium tank family. The US Army doesn't have the luxury to introduce a new family concept in one reveal, as it already has an expensive-to-replace centerpiece in Abrams. This is the backbone of its armored units, tied to decades of training, spares, maintenance, infrastructure, and allied supply chains. So instead of starting from scratch, the US prefers to focus on upgrading what it already fields. Right now, that means keeping the Abrams relevant on a battlefield that punishes heavy weight and high fuel demand, without giving up the protection that makes heavy armor useful in the first place. And when and if the US decides to pursue ideas similar to what's on display in the Type 100, it often does so through separate programs, so drones and autonomy can evolve on their own timelines, rather than waiting for a major vehicle redesign cycle. Whether that's smarter or simply slower depends on the same thing every modernization effort depends on: how fast the battlefield forces doctrine changes.